Hello, welcome back to another section of Swim, Why We Love the Water by Lynn Scher. Trying something new here, sitting at our kitchen table. Hopefully the fridge doesn't make too much noise. Sometimes it runs and is loud, but can't be worse than traffic, right? If you're new around here, I'm Julie. I read books over here. Thanks for joining us. We are about halfway in this book. We've just encountered the section in the middle where there's pictures, color pictures, and there's quite a few, but I believe some of them may give away what happens in the race that our author takes and is recounting throughout the book. So I'm going to save those for the end, so stay tuned for that. But today we are starting on page 90 with the page break. If you like the book, subscribe to catch the rest, and you can go back and start from wherever you are if you're not caught up to this point. So page 90, let's go. In the late 1960s, Doc Councilman's research on drag convinced freestylers to use the so-called S-stroke. That's where you curve your leading arm in toward the body before moving it back out past the hip for recovery. It was based on an effect in physics called Bernoulli's principle, and it was supposed to work because lift-based thrust, pushing water perpendicular to the body, was more effective than drag-based thrust, pushing water back parallel to the body. The prime example is the boat. When you paddle, it's drag. When the propeller rotates, it's lift. Which one gets you there faster? A number of coaches voted for lift, and the S-shaped arm stroke rather than the straight back deep catch took over. That was then. A generation or so, the thinking is different. The nice thing about computational modeling is that we can actually test some of these things, explains Rajat Mittal of the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Johns Hopkins University. So we got underwater video of some Olympic athletes using both strokes, and we simulated both. That simple sentence belies hours of painstaking research, based on their ability to analyze how water flows past the body. Dr. Mittal and his team animated their study using the same computer program that gave us the movie Shrek. What they learned was no fantasy. We found that the deep catch, drag-based, is definitely superior, he tells me, and I tried it out myself. It does seem to work better. Dr. Mittal, a recreational lap swimmer who entertains himself in the pool by thinking about the drag he might be creating, adds one more twist to the story. Even the deep catch actually produces quite a bit of thrust from lift, he says. So in some sense, half the theory was true. There is some amount of lateral motion in the arms as you complete the stroke. We'll send it into a swimming journal. Dr. Mittal first came to the swim world's attention with a study funded by USA Swimming that analyzed American Olympians' use of the dolphin kick, a major mechanical influence on modern competitive swimming. Now he's studying fish, trying to learn what kind of a noise a fish makes when it swims and how that might relate to human swimming efficiency. He wants to know how fish use their pectoral fins to swim so efficiently. What makes their fins similar to butterfly wings? Why dolphins work at 60% efficiency in the water and humans only 11 to 12%. A lot of the dolphin's efficiency is due to its beautifully streamlined shape, he explains. And if we could just wear a suit that would make us have the shape of a dolphin, we'd recover quite a bit of that efficiency. Dr. Mittal also wonders why dolphin speed seems to defy physics. The amount of power they're swimming at seems to far exceed the muscle power of the animal, he says. The meditation turns to fact. Many fish and cetaceans, and especially the dolphin, exude some kind of mucus from their pores, a little slime layer. Polymer drag reduction, he calls it. He says it really works, and that both the Navy and DARPA are spending millions to see if it can apply to marine vehicles. Wait till the coaches hear about that one. Gains in the lane also come from the pool itself. Deep water is faster. Deep gutters mean less splashback. Wider lane lines mean calmer waters. Calm is good. The fastest swimmers get to swim in the middle because there's less turbulence from competitors. And those colorful markers dividing one lane from another are not just colorful markers. They're scientifically engineered wave destroyers to keep the pool from becoming a foamy water park. The patent on the ones you see at your local Y or school is likely held by Adolf Kiefer, the indefatigable Olympian. He won gold at the Berlin Olympics in 1936 and champion of all things swimming. The company he founded in Illinois supplies much of the nation's aquatic gear, who still swims daily in his 90s. It's true, the Y uses that stuff. All those refinements make the swimmers faster and the meets more exciting, which leads to new records and the promoters hope bigger audiences. But they're tough to attract. Swim meets are inherently hard to follow. All you see is a head, arms, the froth of a kick. Underwater cameras help with clock-stopping images of fingertip touches, but you never get the mid-race close-up of the athlete's face. Can't get behind the goggles to focus on how he or she might be feeling. That's why, in the tradition of the late, great Roone Arledge, the best television sports programming focuses on the athlete's stories to engage the viewer with what's going on inside that swim-capped head. And with so many sports competing for the attention of a finite audience, it also helps if the team wins. My philosophy has been to make swimming the centerpiece of prime time, says Dick Ebersol, the innovative executive producer of NBC's Olympic coverage for 20 years and now a consultant for the 2012 Games. With swimming, you get American winners. He puts his faith in USA Swimming, which governs and promotes the sport, to identify and nourish champions. It has arguably the best grassroots organization of any Olympic sport in the U.S., Ebersol says. As a result, you can rely on the swimmers. If they get to that level, they are a breed apart. The Olympians in almost every single sport are mutants, a coach tells me with complete awe. They're at the far end of the bell curve, and they have the perfect body type, the perfect physiotype, and the perfect mind. Did you see the King's speech? Remember where he tells him, it's not about the mechanics. You know, you get to a certain point, and it's not about the mechanics. That's what separates the Olympians. Do they have the heart and mind? And can they be there on that stage and perform at that minute? They call it neck up because so many contests are won or lost in the head. Pre-race tactics can rattle the brain. I told everyone in the weight room I was going to false start, confesses Donna de Verona, whose 2 gold medals at the 1964 Olympics capped her spectacular teenage swimming career, and I did. She reminds me that the rules used to allow 2 false starts where you go off before the gun, and that she took full advantage. I wanted to get wet. It made me feel close to the water, and I could breathe better. She says she also admits that it was very self-centered. Anything out of the ordinary can unsettle finely tuned racers, shaking them out of their concentration. Today, a false start gets you disqualified. De Verona would have prevailed without it. It's all about speed, she says, wincing at the memories. You're a Formula One race car. Competitive swimming is the ability to push the pain threshold further in every way. For some, it's life-changing. Mel Stewart, who won 2 golds and 1 bronze in the 1992 Olympics, today is a passionate swimming promoter and blogger. But after his victories, he stopped swimming for 10 years. There was so much pressure, so many tears, he says. When I finally made it, it wasn't joy. It was relief. I maybe swam 3 hours a year for those 10 years afterwards. New York Times sports reporter Karen Krause, a former competitor herself, understands the emotional cost of a career in the water. I came into college thinking swimmers were the most well-adjusted, balanced, sane individuals, but I saw so much dysfunction. I didn't have the life experience to understand that winning isn't normal. And now that I'm grown up and covering athletes day after day after day, it is really so rare I see a top-level athlete who I would say is a well-balanced individual. There's usually some hole in their lives they're trying to fill through athletic achievement. I used to feel such regret that I'd never become the swimmer I wanted to be. Now I'm thinking I just didn't have enough dysfunction. The dissonance between the years of Olympic glory, when you made the water boil and the whole world hold its breath, and the reality of resurfacing in the non-swimming world is starkly dramatized in Amphibians, a well-reviewed play recently staged in an abandoned London pool. Creator-director Cressida Brown based it on interviews with past and present athletes, and while the pool is empty, the limber actors, clad in bathing suits and caps, writhe in the virtual water like a team of terrified minnows. "Lane 6 is my name," announces one, stripped of humanity after a lifetime of practice as a teenager. "You're first, second, third, or you're nothing," says another. "There is only time and water, the race and the finish, the black line." For Cullen Jones, the drama is his life. Like most sprinters, he holds his breath for the entire 21 seconds of the 50-meter freestyle. Sure, you are thinking, I can hold my breath for 21 seconds? Easy. Oh yeah. While trying to cover the same territory on your belly that a quarterback races from the 50-yard line, you go from very, very comfortable to very, very uncomfortable very, very fast, Jones tells me. Anytime that you are missing a bus and you run for the bus, you know that winded, tired, that almost choking feeling in your chest? That's what I have to learn to live with. My race is 21 seconds. By the first 5 seconds, I'm hurting, and I'm going, and halfway, you're like, gasp. You're like, I gotta get in. I ask if the pain is centered in his lungs. Everything. It's everything. You're going to be kicking so hard, your legs are burning, your arms are moving, your arms are going to get tired, especially when you're pulling water. You're literally pulling yourself up through the water and throwing it back behind you. He shakes his head at the thought. Do you swim for pleasure now? Not right now. I don't think any of us really do, he says. A smile returns. I'm in the pool for 4 to 6 hours every day, and then I'm lifting weights on top of that. And sometimes on a Saturday, I'll sleep for a couple of hours, and friends come by and say, hey, see you in the pool. And I'm like, no, I'll stay dry. I want to be dry for the next 24 hours. That's the end of, oh, never mind, I thought that was the end of a chapter. We've got a picture, Infinity in the Caribbean. Infinity pool. And we have a little appearance by Zahira, my kitty. Say hi. All right, top of page 97. On the morning I enter the water in Curacao, my first workout in a rectangular 50 meters long, I understand why it's called an infinity pool. The barely visible far wall seems planted in another hemisphere. Olympians demolish this distance in roughly 25 strokes. That's left 1, right 2, left 3, and so on. I will be lucky to triple that. I am in the Doug Stern pool at Lions Dive and Beach Resort, an unpretentious, aquacentric hotel that has become a familiar home to my group. The adventure was begun several decades ago by Stern, a gifted New York coach who was, by all accounts, a born teacher, a deeply inspiring leader, a guy who could make anyone a better swimmer and a better person. The boom in triathlons brought him waves of talented runners and cyclers eager to learn or perfect that third leg. His charisma brought them back year after year. Although Stern died in 2007, the winter tradition continues in the pool now named for him, with many of his followers, 2 other swim instructors, and a few first-timers. We begin with pyramids, increasing sets of 50, 100, up to 200 meters, then down again. We do one-arm drills to improve our pull, then kickboard lengths to get the legs going. We work on endurance by breathing every stroke, then every third stroke, then, well, I still can't do that part of it for long. I thought I had breathing down. It is, after all, something I've been doing for a lot of years, unconsciously on land with barely a thought in the water. Turns out you need to think about it. Swimming is the only sport where you have to actively focus on when you do breathe or else bad things happen, says Scott Bay, coach chair for U.S. Master Swimming. In a telephone conversation several months later, he tells me that the problem starts when we're taught at a really early age to take a deep breath and hold it, then go underwater. We tend to stick with that all of our lives. The consequences can be very disruptive. If you hold your breath for just half a second, Bay goes on, you're flexing all your muscles in your core, especially the diaphragm, just to hold that breath. And every time you flex a muscle, it's going to burn some oxygen. So those core muscles are burning oxygen for fuel, taking oxygen out of the bloodstream rather than putting it in, and depriving the muscles that need it to swim. Don't hold your breath, he advises. Slowly exhale when your face is in the water. You want to try to breathe as normally and rhythmically as possible. Not too normally. Once, during a USMS class, when we were doing lung busters, lengths of the pool underwater without breathing to increase our endurance, I find myself so relaxed, feeling so normal as I glide along with the pretty pale blue tiles beneath me, I momentarily forget I am human and try to breathe in. When my non-existent gills don't function, I shoot up to the surface to gulp some air. In extreme cases, that's called shallow water blackout and can be deadly. With me, it was just dumb. Back in Curacao, I can't say I'm having fun yet. Can't figure out why I'm doing race sprints when I'm just trying to improve my long-distance performance. Turns out, learning to go fast complements tweaking your technique. You need to do both. And within a day or so, I'm feeling more comfortable. Still lagging behind most, but sometimes swimming alongside or ahead of a few others. Our patient but very persistent coaches, Boris Talin and Vlad Bartchuk, best buddies from their time as Russian swim stars, pinpoint my challenges. I need to curve my wrists downward, soften my left leg, and break the water slightly in the kick. But I am learning, and yes, Boris agrees. I have a very strong breaststroke. The folks in my lane and the lanes next to us are nothing but supportive. They are also remarkably diverse, from eastern Canada to the northwest coast, from Michigan and Maryland and Brooklyn, New York. They are men and women with and without mates, from their 30s to their late 70s. Only a few fit the body type of the pros. There is a veterinarian, an advertising executive, a government manager, a sculptor, 2 retired school teachers, and while they are all very proficient in the water and attached to it, they don't always love it unconditionally. I think swimming hurts too much. You have to work so hard at it, confesses Irene Polly Kennedy, 44, a slender and energetic former gymnast who only started swimming in 2001. But she's happy to put in the work, teaching high school and age group swimming and using her strong stroke in long-distance competitions in the lakes of Michigan. She's here with her husband Andy, a beefy 6'2" with a monster kick behind his powerful freestyle. At dinner one evening after our afternoon ocean swim, a taxing hour in rolling swells that has me gasping despite the fins strengthening my kick, Irene and Andy joke about how much fun it was to time their strokes to the waves. I think how nice it would have been to have that much control. For many of these swimmers, it is less a sport than a discipline, less a workout than a way of life. Melanie Kinnison, a radiologist, is a champion cyclist and triathlete who has been swimming since she was an infant. Swimming is like life, she tells me. It was different every day. You'd have days where you'd own the water. It was just there for you. Other days, it was just like swimming in mud. Was that about you or the water? I ask. Nay, she responds. Swimming is the way you see yourself, your life. It's just the way you look at it. It could all be working, and you hope that day will be race day. Air, she goes on, doesn't do it. But in water, you're totally surrounded by the medium. Especially when everything is working, you're just gliding along and you say, wow, this is it. She thinks what sets swimming apart is the breathing. You really get into it because you have to. It's a matter of life or death. You can run without thinking so much about it, but you cannot swim without controlling your breath. It's the breath of life, or the breath of peace. Sarah Widenhouse is here from North Carolina. She learned to swim as a child in the chilly sea off Rhode Island, and then gave it up when she moved south to the mountains. But after her son turned 2, she started doing laps again and discovered, wow, it's quiet in the pool. Can't sit on my book, can you? It was like a big timeout. Swimming also saved her during a recent bout with a very rare form of appendix cancer. When I was going through chemo, swimming counterbalanced the hours of being tied to a drip, she tells me. It was like a prize, a dream that kept me going. It made me feel like I was winning. When I speak with her after our trip, she is even more grateful. It was an amazing gift. I shed my patient issues, and I did things I did not know I was capable of. Swimming makes me feel like I'm really living the life I want. It's the most rewarding activity I do, and it's helped me physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Nothing stops them. Judy Rybert, a former New York cable TV executive, once swam down the Hudson River and nearly found herself on the way to Wall Street because the currents almost kept her from hitting the landing spot. Kate Pennell, an advertising manager who also corrals the unruly gang with verve and efficiency, encountered a clear, round jellyfish during a swim to Malta that gave her a scar lasting 7 months. Ray Ploticia, a former surfer and Melanie's husband, found his first triathlon swim in the Severn River at Annapolis terrifying. The guns go off, there are hundreds of people thrashing about. It's as if you're surrounded by piranha. I couldn't put my face in the water. Could I go back to the shore? The distance, half a mile out, half a mile back, looked huge. But I did the breaststroke, eased in the crawl, and made it. Then I realized I could do anything. He has since completed the Ironman Hawaii 5 times. Another of my swim campmates is Dr. Oliver Sacks, the brilliant author and neurologist. To this group, he's Oliver the Swimmer, the one-time West Coast weightlifting champ whose diminished physique at 77 has not restrained his enthusiasm for the activity he loves most in the world. He has been a water baby, his term, since childhood, and has written and spoken eloquently on the essential rightness about swimming. I never knew anything so powerfully, so healthily euphoriant, he said. In Curacao, Oliver is more fragile than he'd like, but shows up for every drill and ocean outing. And when he slips into the water, he is very strong indeed. One afternoon, while we are snorkeling together, a rare free swim in the arms of a scheduled cove, he tells me, I wish I could spend my life in the water. I feel much more confident here." Later, after reading a passage aloud from one of his books to the group gathered around him on the beach, an annual rite that captivates everyone, he talks about his newest swimming milestones. "A longer stroke," he announces, "and bilateral breathing. For a year, it seemed so artificial. Now it feels natural. 1 year. The lesson? The plasticity of the human brain. You can teach an old dog new tricks. You continue to learn until you die." I think about that the next day as I'm about to leave Curacao to return home. My arms are aching, my shoulders stiff. It is the first time I have ever hurt from swimming. Which means I'm doing something either very right or very wrong. I'd like to think it's the former, that by pushing my body to explore a more intense form of this activity, I'm discovering more about myself. One of the swimming professors at Indiana told me he likes the tough master's workout because the social component makes you work harder, and rest periods your lane pals, and it makes it a much better experience. I am, he says, happy in my lane. I mentioned that I'm not, that the faster swimmers are frustrating to me, that being passed is very humbling. So is parenting, he says. There it is again, swimming as life. You may never get either one totally right, but you can, as Oliver Sacks says, always learn. We've got a little anecdote on the bottom of 102, Liquid Silk. Syndicated health columnist Judy Foreman, who did her first flip turn at 59, placed 6th in the 50-meter backstroke at the 2011 U.S. Masters Nationals meet in Mesa, Arizona, at the age of 67. The competition would have been unthinkable a little over a decade ago. I had just left the Boston Globe, she recalls, and I missed the camaraderie, so I joined USMS and started swimming 3 days a week at noon. The first year or so, it took courage. It was so intense. I swam in the slow lane, still do, with snorkel and flippers. I thought, when is this workout going to be over? Now I find it delightful to have something physical that I'm getting better at. Water, she says, is liquid silk. Swimming is the only place I feel valued for being old. At Nationals, she was invigorated as much by the crowds as by the race. When it was over, everybody, the whole 1,800 of us, stood and cheered for some 90-year-old guy who finished his race. Oh, that's so sweet. That's the end of chapter 5. Get a little bit into chapter 6 on page 103. Go with the flow. Still no red balloons, at least not from my frog's eye view of the sea. I check my watch and realize I've been at it for more than 45 minutes. Will I finish in time if I can't find the boat? That's one of the challenges of open water swimming. Without markers, you can't read distance. The field of blue seems to stretch on forever. And that's just across. Down is another problem. It's too deep to see the bottom, maybe 300 feet beneath me, and there are no lane lines to keep me straight, no walls to push off, not to mention the fact that I'm sharing someone else's territory, someone who might not be terribly friendly. Someone or something that now shows up unexpectedly. Yuck! The fingers of my left hand strike jello, a slimy mass that feels like dessert. I retract my arm like a bullet and peer into the brine. It's a jellyfish, a transparent undulating disc some 4 inches in diameter that, I'm relieved to discover, seems equally repelled by me. It scoots away benignly. We've all been obsessing about jellyfish, daily discussing the odds of long poisonous stingers plaguing our route. The boats, we are assured, carry plenty of vinegar to treat the afflicted. Small consolation. As it turns out, we're lucky. No purple nasties this day. Just these colorless little critters, who intermittently become my companions for the crossing. Half a dozen times my eyes fasten on a small cluster, a class, not a school, of jellies shimmering in shafts of sunlight. One grander specimen, at least 10 inches across, whirls around like a flying saucer. It's dreamy and makes me smile. Then I refocus. This is not Leander's route. For one thing, he swam at night, while we splash across in splendid sun. For another, he mythologically shot straight from his home in the ancient Asian city of Abydos to the town where Hero lived in European Sestos, a distance that used to measure less than a mile according to the 1st century geographer Strabo. Since both cities are long gone and the coastline has substantially eroded, our journey follows a slightly different path, governed less by myth than by nature. There are 2 sets of currents, Ahmet told us at the briefing, projecting a giant diagram with unambiguous arrows. The warm water from the Mediterranean flows north and is pushed under by the cold water from the Black Sea flowing south. The result? A narrow pair of upward flowing forces along each coast, flanking a border, and much faster downward force in the middle. It is too strong to permit a simple point-to-point crossing, which would only be about a mile. Instead, we are routed along a sweeping arc from the town of Essiabat on the European side, slightly northeast to compensate for the currents, then southeast along the shore to finish the finish line at Kanakale, a quiet Asian seaport where we are staying. Kanakale's main tourist attraction is the gigantic wooden horse used in the Brad Pitt movie Troy, a campy souvenir of an artifact that likely never existed from a film that was not shot here. This is no Hollywood on the Hellespont, simply where we will end up if we follow the squiggly path. 4 times longer than the straight shot across, it is the only smart choice. If you go in a straight line, very few will complete the course. Ahmet cautions over and over again, you can be dragged out of the straight. You can easily underestimate the current. And if you're in it and find yourself south of the finish point, it is almost impossible to swim back. Don't try. Accept the help of the boats. Just in case we don't catch his drift, he concludes ominously, you must swim this course. If not, you will wind up, pause for dramatic effect, somewhere else. Some of the audience giggle. I busily memorize the diagram. I have been obsessed by maps since I signed up for this event, repeatedly pulling up the location on Google Earth and tracing my finger across these waters. It seemed to make sense sitting at home in New York. The idea of crossing open water felt both exotic and sensible, a destination swim. Now that I'm in it, it's a lot bigger than my fingertip, but I like the sense of place, the knowledge that I'm not bouncing back and forth between walls, just going forth to another continent. As Simon Murray of Swim Trek has told me, it's about the idea of the journey. When you've done it, you can see where you came from. That's the great thing about open water swimming. You finish somewhere different. In a pool, you finish where you started. Not that there is anything wrong with swimming pools. In the ongoing debate over where to best to swim, the untamed blue waters that define our planet or the boxed-in beauty of pools, I'm an equal opportunity addict. And while I trained for the Hellespont mostly by swimming long distances in the bay and the ocean off the eastern end of New York's Long Island, my final post-event workouts were in the warm crystal waters of the peaceful pool at the Four Seasons Hotel in Istanbul, a blue-tiled oasis snuggled so close to the Bosporus, I imagine myself swimming across that fabled waterway too. Pools glisten in the sun. They illuminate a dreary yard. They play with lines and light, and the wavy reflections of sun in water animate the straight walls. Shadows and shimmering patterns make endless new designs, always in motion. As the artist David Hockney brilliantly captured in swimming pool paintings and collages that have redefined the color blue, pools are pure, a simple shape that traps nature's force for our benefit. We think differently about water when it's made accessible. It's a surprise, a safe haven in the most improbable places. One proposal for the redevelopment of New York's abandoned High Line Railway imagined the entire track as a swimming pool, a mile-long ribbon of blue winding above the city. One very long lap. The author of A History of Swimming Pools doctored a photo to add a diving board to the reflecting pool at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Suddenly, it graduates from decoration to invitation. You want to plunge in. Don't. It's too shallow, also illegal. Right, we've got some pictures. Icy hair, warm water in Utah. Must be in like a, can't really show it too well. Then I've got another one here. I believe it is a swimming basin. Let me read you the caption. Overlooking Herod's public immersion pool, Masada. All right, top of page 106. At a health club in Manhattan's East Side, I swam in a pool beneath a skylight so vast I could count the buildings, and in my mind's eye, swim down, then up 2nd Avenue. Cars can't even do that. In Deer Valley, Utah, I gathered up my granddaughters and took a dip amid the steam of the 100-degree pool at the Stein Erikson Lodge, a blissful way to repair the muscle damage of a day on the trails. Watching skiers slide by was otherworldly. As 11-year-old Sammy pointed out, "Lynn, your hair is frozen." Seeing pools from an airplane makes me want to parachute in. They are modern oases, turquoise rectangles in the urban desert. Lawmakers find them even more valuable. In 2010, when Greece first awoke to its dire financial situation, satellite photos of swimming pools in the suburbs helped identify scofflaws who were not paying taxes on them. Pools were an ancient pleasure as well. Public baths, sometimes used for swimming, dotted the Roman Empire, vital centers of social discourse before they devolved into playgrounds of debauchery. In Rome, Pliny the Younger had a heated pool from which he could see the sea. Seneca the Younger lived up to his Stoic principles by bathing only in cold water and criticizing his colleagues for disparaging anything but a pool lined with fancy marble. But the biggest pool empire of that world was built by the erratic 1st century BCE dictator Herod the Great, whose indoor and outdoor tanks can be seen in Israel from the top of Masada to the ramparts of Old Jerusalem. The archaeological evidence of this master builder's monuments are dazzling. Herod built a 250-meter pool at his palace in Jericho, now in Jordan, which might have been used for sailing, also for a drowning. The maniacal king was so identified with the structures. In the 1970s Broadway hit Jesus Christ Superstar, the character of Herod challenges Jesus to walk across my swimming pool. An irreverent illusion that is at least rooted in historic real estate. Like swimming itself, the pool, as a popular addition to a courtyard or backyard, disappeared from Western history after the fall of Rome. In the 18th century, the first floating tanks drifted on barges down the River Seine. The Germans and Austrians quickly built their own. In Germany, King Ludwig II, who would ultimately be known by the adjective mad, included a pool in his fairy tale Neuschwanstein castle. Meanwhile, they started digging in England, where by the 1850s enough pools existed to feed the growing passion for the sport. In the United States, swimming baths came to the big cities, and the first public swimming pool may have been the one opened in Brookline, Massachusetts in 1897, a grand indoor tank that paid homage to Leander, among others, on its tiled walls. In California, William Randolph Hearst set a new standard with his Roman-style pools designed by architect Julia Morgan at San Simeon, a modern palace. By the 1930s, swimming pools had moved from the private estates of Vanderbilts and Morgans on the East Coast to the mansions of movie stars in the West. They were a symbol of luxury, the exclusive province of royalty and the rich. Hollywood? Oh, what a life! Proclaimed actor Dick Powell in the 1937 movie Hollywood Hotel, falling in and out of swimming pools. Liberace and Frank Sinatra swam in pools shaped like pianos. Jane Mansfield, a heart. Joan Fontaine had a pool with an island in the middle. Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks could fit a canoe in theirs. Here's a picture of Liberace and his piano pool. How fun. Page 109. Pools became freeform with the availability of the more moldable gunite, leading to specimens shaped like, of all things, kidneys. A Florida dentist had a pool that looked like a molar, a seafood wholesaler a blue crab. Angles returned with lap pools, an invention of the 1970s. And while California remained the swimming pool capital of the country, the suburbanization of America in the late 1950s suddenly made pools affordable for more mainstream citizens. In 1948, there were 2,500 residential swimming pools in the United States. In 1957, 57,000. It was just the beginning. Today, the more than 10 million Americans with private pools are using them for far more than just swimming. I think the biggest trend is that people these days want more than a pool, says Dan Johnson, a Florida builder who operates out of Sarasota. When I got into the business, if you gave them a 15 by 30 kidney-shaped pool, they were thrilled. Today, almost no pool goes in without a water feature. They want to see the water move. They want to hear it move. They want it to dance, to turn colors at night. One of his most popular features, he says, is the rain current. A laminar jet creates a stream so perfect it looks like a neon tube. And I can actually tune the sound, Johnson adds, that people originally just wanted to get wet, splash around. Happy as a lark. Now getting wet isn't enough. I ask if people actually swim in their pools these days. The vast majority don't, Johnson replies, astonished. I'd guess less than 20%. I'd bet my salary on it. So what do they do there? We build a lot of benches in pools, like living rooms, he explains. Also tables against the side wall, and on the other side bar stools. They sit down and have cocktails, eat something, then get out. Or they put the outdoor TV on the lanai, and if it's football season, guys are there with all their buddies. Pools have become true entertainment centers. We've got some pictures of different features. There's like the kidney pool shape with the stools. We've got like, it's kind of a blurry picture, but it's got a caption, like state of the art with lots of features. Let me read it. Pool, bar, state-of-the-art kitchen, fireplace, rope swings, and waterfalls in Asheville, North Carolina. It has changed the way our family spends time together, says the owners, the parents of 4 children. All right, I guess they're doing something in the pool. Page 111. Dick Covert, whose Richmond, Virginia-based Masters Pools Guild connects high-end pool builders around the world, says the trend began after 9/11, when a lot of people started saying, travel is not safe, it's hectic, it's inconvenient, we're going to create our own environment in our house. So they turned their backyards into mini resorts, with outdoor kitchens and waterfalls and other amenities. Outdoor living has become a way of life, he says, and the pool area has become another room in their home. He describes a home in Oklahoma City where the pool area contains a lazy river, like at a resort, where you can float in an inner tube several hundred yards long. There's a lot of land in Oklahoma. And he says most outdoor kitchens contain a Viking type setup to cook, grill, or make the meal completely outdoors. There is also generally a lounge area with the TV. It's really where they live. His customers, says Covert, also swim. They want 25 meters for laps. And one of our vendors does a really good business in in-pool bicycles and treadmills. He's also seen his share of odd designs, especially in Nashville. I saw a pool shaped like a record with an island in the middle, and a piano, and one like a Star Trek deal. Another trend, he says, is the natural pool, building something that looks as if it belongs there. We see a lot where you can walk down what we call zero entry or beach entry, he explains. It's just like going in from the beach. And we have one in Illinois that looked like a winter scene with snow, a gorgeous pond in the winter, but not frozen because they kept it heated. Covert believes that pools are an escape. People see them as a total change from the hectic world we live in. When you go into your backyard and all of a sudden you're in a quiet place with running water, you hear the fountain, well, you just begin to relax. After you're tied in knots all day long working on the telephone, on the computer, a pool has a calming effect on people. A former lifeguard who still enjoys the water himself, Dick Covert prefers the pool to the ocean. I don't like the salt. I don't like the creatures. In the ocean, you have to struggle. In a pool, I can just float. And that is where we will stop this section on the near bottom, one more paragraph to go, of page 112. We are in chapter 6, so that is where we will pick up next time. Thank you for joining me for another section of Swim. Hope you enjoyed the appearance of Zahira, and I will see you next time. Bye.